Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the most famous servant leaders in the world. He is known nationwide for his speeches and marches for civil rights. With the recent rallies and racism, I felt as though Martin would be a great servant leader to document in this digital story. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. His birth name was Michael Luther King, but was later changed to Martin Luther King Jr. Martin's parents were Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta Williams King. He also had two siblings, Christine and Alfred. Martin acted as co-pastor at his family's church. Martin met and married Coretta Scott, and they were blessed with 4 children. Martin continued his education and earned his Ph.D. in 1955. In 1955, Rosa Parks had refused to give up her seat to a white man on the bus, which was the start of the Montgomery bus boycott led by Nixon and Martin Luther. Martin was arrested during this time and also started his time as a spokesman for the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. traveled all over the world delivering heartfelt and moving speeches. He was a respectable person that spoke about why all people should be given the same rights. Martin Luther King Jr. was responsible for the marches for the right to vote, desegregation, labor rights, as well as many other civil rights. Most of these civil rights were passed by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested 29 times for his marches against civil rights. His house was often vandalized, but he still continued to fight for what he felt was right. He was able to open the eyes of a lot of important figures. On August 28, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. This speech was 17 minutes long. He spoke about the future of his children and the hopes of having a life of equality for all. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. These were some of the famous words of Martin Luther King Jr. during his I Have a Dream speech. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. Martin was able to speak of the future generations and connect to those that had children and families. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech was a huge turning point in the civil rights movement, which helped pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. On April 4, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on his balcony in Memphis by James Earl Wright at the age of 39 years old. This picture shows one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches. He speaks about standing up and speaking about what you believe is right at that exact moment, instead of letting fear dictate your decision. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the most famous servant leaders that history has ever seen. He stood up for the civil rights of all African Americans. He was able to lead the way for equal rights of all human beings. This picture has the quote, "His legacy will live on," which is perfect. Martin Luther King Jr. is the reason why every person has the same opportunities, rights, and privileges. He proved that we all bleed the same no matter what color of your skin. He sacrificed his life for what he believed in, and for that reason his values and words will always live on.